Right now in South Korea, there is a woman in her mid-30s who has spent the last decade working a stable, respected government job. She brings home about 3 million won a month, which is a perfectly decent middle-class salary that keeps her comfortable. She has even managed to save up a solid 100 million won by being smart with her money. But here is the kicker that has everyone scratching their heads. When she looks for a husband, she absolutely refuses to even consider a man who earns the same 3 million won that she does. To her, a man making exactly what she makes is not a partner. He is a financial disaster waiting to happen. It is like walking into a bakery with $5 in your pocket, looking at a $5 loaf of bread and deciding that the bread is actually worth zero, because it does not come with a free bottle of expensive wine. You have the same value, but somehow, his value makes your life worse instead of better. This is the hilarious, frustrating contradiction sitting at the heart of the Korean marriage market today. We are looking at a scene where the average worker is not just ignored but actively rejected by their own peers. But why would someone who is objectively average in terms of income feel so entitled to a partner who sits in the top 10% of earners? If you ask her, she will tell you it is about stability and the future, but if you look closer, it is actually about a brutal calculation of greed. The underlying conflict here is that many women in this position have shifted from a partnership model of marriage to what you could call a mercenary model. They do not see a husband as a companion to build a life with, they see him as a financial upgrade. In her mind, her 3 million won is her baseline. It is the money she uses for her own clothes, her coffee, and her hobbies. Any man she marries is expected to provide the actual life, the house, the car, the kids, and the luxury vacations. If he only makes what she makes, she realizes she will actually have to keep working just as hard as she does now, but with the added bonus of doing laundry for two, and potentially raising a child. To her, if the man does not bring a massive financial surplus to the table to offset the effort of being a wife, the whole deal is a total loss. She is basically trying to short sell the marriage market, looking for a way to exit the workforce or at least make her own labor optional, while someone else picks up the tab for the premium lifestyle she sees on her phone screen every day. So, why does our society keep feeding this specific brand of madness? It comes down to a weird cultural pride that has completely lost touch with economic reality. In Korea, being a civil servant used to be the ultimate prize. It meant you were set for life with a pension and a title that commanded respect in any neighborhood. But while that social status is still floating around in people's heads, the actual purchasing power of that paycheck has been shredded by inflation and a housing market that looks more like a vertical line than a graph. These women are clinging to a title that no longer buys the life they think they deserve. They think because they passed a hard exam and have a high-quality job, they are somehow part of a different social caste than a guy working in a private company for the same pay. There is this site-specific delusion where everyone thinks they are a Porsche, but they are living in a world where almost everyone is actually a used bicycle. The society has spent years telling young people that if they just study hard and get the right title, the world will owe them a luxury life. Now that the world is failing to deliver on that promise, instead of looking at the broken economy, they turn their frustration toward potential partners, blaming them for not being good enough to fulfill the fantasy. What happens when this inflated ego meets the cold, hard logic of the modern world? You get a total collapse of the social contract. We see this massive wave of hypocrisy where the demand for equality in the office is loud and proud, but the demand for a traditional male provider at home is even louder. People want the rights of a modern, egalitarian society, but the perks of a traditional hierarchy where the man pays for everything. This is why the half-and-half marriage trend is such a disaster in practice. Both sides talk about sharing the load, but as soon as the numbers hit the table, the woman in our report rejects it because it offers her no profit. This system is failing because the incentives for marriage have been vaporized for both sides. For the woman, marriage is only worth it if it is a shortcut to wealth. For the man, the incentive of starting a family is buried under the crushing weight of being judged as a failure for earning an average wage. If you are a guy making a decent living, and the woman you are dating looks at your paycheck and treats you like you are subhuman because you are not a millionaire, why would you ever sign that contract? This is where the backfire really starts to sting. What is the result of these impossible demands? The men are simply checking out, opting out of the game entirely because they realize the rules are rigged against them. Why work 80 hours a week and save every penny? Just to be told you are a low-quality man by someone who makes exactly the same amount of money? This has led to the rise of the marriage strike, where men are finding happiness in their own hobbies, their own small apartments, or even looking for partners in other countries. where the financial bar is not set at the moon. The irony is delicious and dark. By demanding a top-tier man that only represents a tiny fraction of the population, these women are effectively making themselves invisible to the 99% of men who could have been great partners. They are holding out for a prince who does not even know they exist, while the guys in their own office, the ones who actually understand their lives, are walking away. Is this just a local problem, or are we seeing a global drift toward this kind of loneliness? While Korea is the extreme example, we see this same infinite comparison, breaking hearts all over the world. In the past, you only had to be better than the guy in the next town. Now, thanks to social media, every woman in a small city is comparing her boyfriend to a tech billionaire she sees on Instagram. This creates a perceptual distortion where good becomes unacceptable. We have entered an era of human deflation, where the value of a person is stripped away until only their bank balance remains. The fallout is a loneliness epidemic that is spreading through the most advanced economies on Earth. We are trading human connection for a chance to win, a financial transaction that almost nobody actually wins. It is a cynical, cold-blooded way to live, and it is turning our cities into collections of tiny, high-tech cells, where people live alone, surrounded by expensive things, wondering why they feel so empty. If we keep going down this road, what does the future look like? It looks like a farce. We are heading toward a society of solitary kings and queens, each ruling over a one-bedroom apartment filled with delivery boxes and high-end skincare products, but with no heirs and no community. We will see 40-year-old individuals still waiting for a magical partner who can afford a $3 million apartment on a whim, while the national birth rate drops so low that the schools start turning into senior centers. The ultimate joke is that the woman who refused to marry a 3 million won man at 35 because he was too poor will find herself at 50, spending more money on professional companionship and loneliness care than she ever would have spent on a family. She will be sitting in a premium chair in an empty room, holding onto her savings, realizing that her high standards were actually just a high-priced ticket to a theater where the movie never started. To wrap this all up, you have to look at the metaphor that describes this mess perfectly. The Korean marriage market is like a broken vending machine that demands a solid gold bar in exchange for a single can of soda. The people setting the prices are putting a premium tag on a product that is already being discontinued. They are offering an average life while demanding an elite reward, treating a potential husband like a stock that has to outperform the entire market on the very first day. It is the ultimate mockery of what it means to be human. We have reached a point where we know the price of everything but the value of nothing. These individuals are standing in an empty store, holding a price tag, wondering why the customer never showed up to pay an impossible fee. They tried to cheat the laws of social and biological exchange, and their prize is a quiet apartment and a very expensive, very lonely future. Fuel the truth at dating in Korea, support the structure, and stay safe in the lounge.